Welcome, everybody, to the one and only Momentum Masters group coaching class. Me and Coach Mike are so excited. We have talked about this group coaching at nauseum because we are just so overjoyed with this, like, genuinely with this idea of really focusing on what matters, which is building up the mind and creating momentum for yourself that doesn't just last, 30 days, 60 days, but it's going to carry into the next year. We're to the point where we're taking the group coaching into the next year. We really want to use this as an opportunity to build you up and put you in a good place so that you can see long-term success. So we're really excited you're here. Today's live is really to go over a couple things, right? We just want to kind of set expectations of what the group coaching is going to be like for the next 13 weeks or so. Helping you understand and building a foundation of setting up purpose and intentions, kind of like goal setting and stuff. Coach Mike will get into that with you. And so really excited. This is kind of the introductory live just to everybody get their feet wet, so to speak. And so kind of want to start with kind of just introductions. So real quick, I'm Jonathan Shane. I'm a nutritional therapist, specializing in metabolic health and hormones, overcame a 10-year battle with bulimia, have been sustained from the eating disorder for almost, oh my gosh, what, it's 7 years now? It's been a long time. And so really been able to try to focus on what does it mean to be healthy, perform well, all while wrestling with the food culture that we deal with, both in the American culture and also like the dogmatic diet stuff that we deal with in our culture that we're in the middle of. So yeah, Mike, you want to introduce?
Sure. Well, I'm excited to be here too, like John, and really excited to get this first week going. So I will say my name is Mike Gorman. If you don't know me, I have been someone that struggled for decades on the diet roller coaster and finally found my way to sustained success, losing over 250 pounds and keeping it off. And mindset was the key. Mindset was the big difference. And that's why I really feel driven by this class, by the idea that the tools that we use are important, but sometimes we just focus too much on the tools and not enough on all of the other pieces involved with supporting those tools and helping us achieve our goals. And like John said, this first week is really going to be about talking about purpose and how purpose drives your goals and finding your why and some really important things to help really get this started. So I'm excited to be here tonight. And
Absolutely.
I will say, I'm sorry, John, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have been coaching now for 5 years, working with people, and these are issues that I work with them on all the time. So it's great to be able to kind of take the lessons that I've learned and share those with other people. So I'll be quiet now.
Absolutely. Okay, so real quick, let's just kind of set expectations and help everyone listening now and then on the recording, kind of just the program flow, so you kind of understand how it's going to flow out. So first, like as I was talking about earlier, just kind of like intentions with the program, right? So our intention here is yes, most people that sign up for the program did sign up for the nutrition package. We can talk about nutrition. There's a part in the WhatsApp that's for nutrition. I'm working on customized macros for y'all this week and I run it by Coach Mike, make sure we like what we see. But really, the core intention of this program is to deal with the space between your ears. Okay. It's to help you understand why we set goals, what that means, how to build momentum, how to sustain it, how to work on yourself, how to navigate others, people's opinions, excuse me, and how that impacts you and your choices, right? Really, I mean, I almost want to go as to say is like really reshaping the way that you view yourself, your food, and how you interact with the world around you. It's really the intention here. And we found that the holidays is no there's no better time to do it than the holidays because I don't know about you, but there's been so many programs I bought in the spring, and by the time Thanksgiving rolls around, it's out the window. It's just gone. Poof. And then even if I sustain it then, New Year's, poof, right? And so this is a really sensitive time for people. And so we thought that it was such an opportunity to help people work on these things during this season of the year. Okay, so kind of what to expect going into that, right? So that's a lot. So what does that look like practically, right? So scheduling, kind of understand. So we're gonna have a live every Monday, right, at 7 p.m. If that changes or we find that people can't join, right, consistently, we can always figure out what works best for people. But this is kind of the standard for now. Monday, 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. PST. We'll be going live to go over the topic of the week. So each week has a particular topic. Some of them are framed around the holidays that are coming. Some are built on kind of the momentum that we want to help you build as we go through the program. And so they're very specific, they're intentional. Me and Mike took many meetings to kind of work through them and figure out what needed to be put where, which one of our expertise and experiences would best benefit y'all with each topic. And so it's very structured intentionally for that. Real quick, if you want to go through the breakdown of the months kind of beforehand, just to kind of prepare yourself, you can go on the page that you bought the program from. But just to go over them quickly, so November is momentum starts here, and then you have building healthy habits, which is next week, and then navigating social situations, managing stress, overcoming plateaus, unwrapping the gifts, building discipline, new year, same you, not letting your snowball melt. Excited for that one. Restriction, punishment, or gift, the power of gratitude, and then graduation week. I kind of paraphrase some of those, but it just gives you an idea of like what we're going to be going over and why. Something else you'll notice too is a lot of group coachings before, me and Mike would take turns on the same topic, kind of talking about what we wanted to talk about. We're structuring things a little different this time, just so that each coach has space to kind of talk about what they're really passionate about. And so you'll notice a couple weeks I'm leading the conversation and Mike's kind of in the background, navigating the chat with y'all, helping keep the chat healthy, answering questions you'll have promptly, posting links, etc. And then you'll notice that Coach Mike then comes in and leads a topic, and I'll be in the chat doing that. And so just if you see that change up, that's what's happening. No one's like taking a back seat. It's structured that way to make sure that you get the most out of the program. Okay. So next, I kind of want to talk about how to operate WhatsApp. So when you go into your WhatsApp, you'll see messages if you use WhatsApp or whatever. You click on the Momentum Masters, okay? So it's broken up into different categories, and it's important to understand how each one of these categories is used so that you know what to put in what, okay? So one is announcements, right? So he'll post a link of the replays, right? The Zoom replays, any kind of announcements or anything that we think is important for the whole group that is not specific to a particular topic, we will place in this announcements tab. Homework is due. Something you'll notice in the structure, we have homework every week. This is going to be a much more, dare I say, more interactive than our previous group coachings. We're going to have assignments for y'all to complete every single week that is specific to the topic at hand. You put your homework in the homework is due folder. It's self-explanatory. Put your homework in there. All right, mental wins. So one thing you'll notice is it's not like an NSV one. And you can definitely put an NSV in this, but it's more phrased that way because we want you focused on the mental wins. We want you to build your mind. And so if you notice that your pan size is down, you can definitely share that because that's a mental thing, right? Like we get joy from that. We see progress for that. We get confirmation with that. But it's definitely predicated towards, okay, I didn't slam the whole bag of Tootsie Rolls this weekend. I didn't eat the whole pie. Someone said something mean to me and I was able to overcome it. I talked to myself negatively and I was able to positively overcome it. Hey, I tried applying the homework and it worked really well, right? So we want to encourage that kind of mental work. That's really again, we're leaning towards that in this program. Next is nutrition talk. So again, if you have the nutrition package, you'll have access to this and you'll be able to get on here and talk about your nutrition, how it's going, macro questions, things like that. Important point to make, and I haven't talked to Mike about this, but I'm gonna say it anyways. If you at some point while watching this and you didn't get the nutrition program and you want to add that on, email me and I can show you how to do that and add that on through the website. Okay. Next is the general. So this is kind of general, right? I wanted this to be fun. If you have like a silly meme or something that you want to post in here, I might post something silly that's food or mind related in here too. Like, this is just general chat. Have some fun with it. Don't make it so serious. I want this to be an opportunity to build community. Have some moments that are lighthearted because there will be moments of this that are hard work for you. And so I think just general announcements, general talk, fun talk, like that would be the kind of stuff that's appropriate for this message tab. And then we have unknown group chat. I don't know what that's for, but it's there.
Which is weird because on your end it's saying that, but that's the weekly live replay chat. I don't know if your WhatsApp hasn't caught up to that yet.
This is the weekly live replay, everybody. This is the weekly live replay.
It's called that when I opened WhatsApp. I just checked because I saw that yours was looking weird.
Oh.
It's okay.
Anyways, announcements is not where the weekly live replays go. It goes in the weekly live replay channel. See, that's why we have these talks. Okay, so as we talked about, that's kind of the WhatsApp, the structure. So that's the structure, that's the schedule layout, that's how the program's structured, that's how to operate the WhatsApp platform. And now to get into the meat and potatoes of this live, Coach Mike, take it away.
Well, first, something I want to say is, like John said, the coach who is speaking is going to be paying attention to the chat. So if while we're talking, questions that you want us to address come up, ask those in the chat. That's completely okay. So in case you're worried about forgetting it, you can also hold it to the end of this discussion where we will have time for a live Q&A. But whatever you're most comfortable with, or if you know you need to drop off and you want to see your question addressed, ask it in the chat. Or if I say something and you're like, I'm not really sure what that means, that kind of thing, put it in the group chat. And John, at this point, will either address the answer or I'll address it. He'll bring it up when we get to the Q&A. So just want to remind everyone about that the chat function does exist during these meetings, but we will have Q&A time at the end. So this week is called It Begins Here. And yes, a lot of that is about how the group is going to work, and we're using WhatsApp and everything that John just talked about. But really, we're talking about this journey of building momentum for the next 3 months. And it really does begin here in this lesson. And what this lesson is going to be talking about is starting with purpose, building intention, and then how that turns into goals and action. So if you've ever worked with me before, see me say anything, see me post anything, you know that I talk a lot about finding your why. And honestly, I believe the game changer when it comes to long-term sustained success, when it comes to your health, is identifying your why and figuring out how that why becomes a part of your daily life. So we're going to talk about all that tonight. We're also then going to talk about how to use that why once it's uncovered and build goals and turn those goals into action. So we have a lot to cover, and we don't have 5 hours. So there are going to be some things that I talk about, and I'll say, I'm going to share a link about this in the group, and I'll put that in the group discussion. So you'll have access to things that I'm talking about. If it's there's really only one that's popping up tonight, but just in case in the future you see that happen. So the importance of finding your why. And I always chuckle when I talk about finding your why because you use the word why so much in the sentences that are describing it. Why finding your why is important for you. But really, when I say why, we're talking about your deeper purpose. Why do you want to make these changes? Why is your health important to you? If you're trying to lose weight, why is that important to you? If you're doing it to deal with, inflammation, hormonal imbalances, whatever changes you're trying to make, getting more active, building healthy habits, wanting to have consistent routines, why does that matter to you? Because really, at the end of the day, that is the thing. Motivation is great. Motivation fades. We all have days that we're really motivated. Then we all have days where we just don't want to do what we know we need to do. And understanding your why on a deep level is what helps you build that connection so you still will do those things every day. So when I say level of purpose, what do I mean? And what I mean there is sometimes when we ask ourselves, why do I want to make these changes? The answers that we come up with are very surface level. They can be things like, well, I have a pair of pants or a shirt in my closet that I want to fit into that I haven't fit into in a few years. Or I feel like my cardiovascular health isn't great and I'm getting winded at work or just going on short walks with my family. Or I want to be more active in my life and not say no to opportunities. Like those things start to simmer on the surface first and pop up really fast. And then the important thing is to keep digging until you find the why that resonates there. So let's take that example of clothing. That's one that I always like to use because it's something that I think pops up fast for people. And what you do is you say, okay, that matters to me, but why does that matter to me? So there's an exercise out there in group development and team building called the 5 whys. And that's where you ask yourself a question and then you ask yourself why when you read the answer 5 times. And that is to help you take that answer deeper. And it sounds like touchy-feely hoo-ha sometimes, but really there are days that just wanting to fit into clothing isn't going to be strong enough, of a force to carry you through doing things that you don't feel like you want to do. But if you take that question, that answer of I want to fit into that clothing, and you say, why does that matter to me? So let's workshop that for a minute. So why does fitting into clothing that you don't fit into anymore matter to you? Well, it could matter because you feel like then you have greater access to clothing options. You feel you have greater access to your closet. A lot of people that are chronic dieters have a section of their closet for the clothes that currently fit, a section for the clothes that used to fit, and the section for clothes that someday they dare to dream hope will fit, kind of thing. And if you want to access that whole closet, that's about having access in your life in ways that take up mental space. So asking yourself that question, why does that matter? So why does access matter? Well, access matters because it goes back to what I was just saying. These things hold a lot of weight in our minds. Not being able to participate in, a group of friends are doing a 5K and not feeling like you'd be able to do that walk can be something that makes you feel like you're not a part of a group. Not being able to take part in an event, not being able to be there for people in your life. Those things are all really important. And so you really want to work out for yourself, why is this really important to me? Why does this change matter? And then you don't just want to find that answer, you want to use that answer. So here's how I recommend that you use that answer. You need to review it every day. It needs to be something that you keep constantly in your mind and stays relevant to your thoughts. Because sometimes when we are faced with challenging decisions on these journeys, if we're not staying in that headspace of understanding why making a positive choice for ourselves is important, we can lose sight in those moments. So I encourage everyone, once you determine your why, make that a part of your daily routine, reviewing it every morning, getting up and reviewing that why statement, that sense of purpose, making that be a part of your life, making that be a part of that force that is going to carry you forward, that is going to build momentum. And why do we talk about finding our why before we talk about, because I think sometimes, especially if you've come into this from a place of you want to lose weight, you probably have a number in mind, you probably have a clothing size in mind, you probably have a goal in mind. I want to encourage you to work more on understanding your why before you clearly define your goals for yourself. Because if you build your goals from that deeper understanding and purpose, they are going to be stronger. They are going to feel more clearly defined to you, and you're going to have a greater understanding of why those goals matter, why those goals are important. It's not just about hitting a number. It's not just about fitting into a size. It's about what getting to that place is going to mean to you. So when you incorporate that into your why, you keep your why in mind, and you use that when you think about building goals and building action, you're building everything from a place of purpose. And everything that we do, every action that you take on this journey of yours, you should be able to look at that action and say, I know why I'm doing that. I know why that action matters. Another reason that reinforces those actions, it reinforces those goals, it reinforces those important things. So let's shift away from purpose and talk about goals. Let's get into that a little bit. And of course, then the first thing I'm going to talk about is coming back to purpose. You want to use what I call the lens of purpose when you start thinking about your goals. Can you take that purpose that you've developed for yourself and see through that lens the goals that you want to put into place, the things that you want to achieve? You want to take that sense of purpose and turn it into those things that you are actually going to strive to be able to do. And we're going to get into types of goals and things along those lines. But first, I want to talk about the fact that you can take that lens of purpose, you can take that level of why that you've developed, and you can then say, okay, what are the things that I actually need in my life right now that are going to be reflective of that purpose? And how can I build goals around that? So it's a process. It's understanding your purpose. It's starting to identify the needs that you have, the things that you need to put into place that help you achieve your goals. One model that I think is really important to consider using when you're planning goals for yourself is SMART goals. And if you've never heard of SMART goals, it's an acronym for the word SMART. And like I said earlier, I'm going to share a link. I'm going to share a link in the WhatsApp of a deeper dive into how to set SMART goals. But I think it's really important, and I think it can be a powerful tool. The acronym SMART means your goals are specific, They're measurable, they're achievable, they are, I'm going to brain fart while we're talking, of course. They are achievable, they're, T is timely, and R, of course, is what I'm blanking on. That's luckily why I have my notes open right here on my phone. And I can tell you that it's relevant. That's why I don't know why relevant is the one that always slips in my mind, because relevant goes back to purpose. Relevant goes back to your why. So if you are interested in setting SMART goals, which again are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely, means they have time attached to them, I'm going to share a link that can help you do some of that work individually, a worksheet that will help you with that. So one of the things that comes out of setting SMART goals or setting goals of any kind is understanding that there are different kinds of goals that you can set for yourself. And usually we talk about goals just in terms of the time vector. Tonight I'm going to talk about it in terms of two pieces, time and the lift involved. So first, when we talk about time, you're setting short-term goals and long-term goals. Short-term goals are usually defined as things that you can achieve within the next 30 to 60 days. Long-term goals, obviously, are things that go beyond that. Long-term goals usually speak to things that are 6 months to a year out. And now, goals aren't just about setting them and forgetting them. It's not a Ronco oven for people that are old enough to know that reference. You're not just throwing a raw chicken into a rotisserie and pulling it out a few hours later. One of the things that happens with short-term goals is you're going to achieve them during the short term, and then you're going to set more. So you want to make sure that while you have your long-term goals in sight, you are setting short-term goals that help move you towards the long-term goals. Think about those short-term goals as the stepping stones that get you to your long-term goals. So when you think about time, it's not just about something within a shorter period of time or a longer period of time. It's how do they support each other? And some things, when we think about examples, like long-term goal can be hitting a weight goal and maintaining that weight. That can be a really fantastic long-term goal. A short-term goal can be involved with setting up your nutrition plan, building an exercise habit, things that you want to get going in the first month. But it can also be something timely that has nothing to do with moving you towards a long-term goal. It could be something like there's a 5K coming up in 30 days that I want to make sure that I'm ready for. There is an event that I want to participate in, or I'm going to attend a function and I want to feel like I have a good handle on the choices I'm making with my nutrition and how I'm managing my habits. So I navigate that event in a way that helps me feel like I'm on track. Time is going to be attached to things along those lines. Now, the other vector that I want to talk about is smaller versus larger goals. And that's when we talk about this idea of lift. How much work is that goal going to take to achieve? Because that's a factor, right? It's not just about creating a checklist and checking the items off your list. Short-term goals, 30 days, I just did that. I did that. You can have short-term goals that are smaller goals and short-term goals that feel larger based on the amount of effort that they're going to take. For example, changing the time that you wake up for some folk may feel like an easy short-term goal. Over the next 30 days, I want to get up an hour earlier so that I have more time for meal prepping, or I have more time for exercise, or I just feel like I have more time to be mindful and reflective of my day. For some folk, that may feel like a heavier lift because you're raising a family or you work late at night and your sleep time is a fixed amount. So just changing that time may feel like a bigger lift. For some folk, putting your meal plan in place is a smaller goal because it's something that you feel like like the back of your hand, and just getting it out there is, you just need to be consistent with it. So you're working on that as a smaller goal. For some folk, you're reinventing the wheel, you're starting over, you're stepping into something that's completely new. It may be a larger lift to get yourself to be consistent with that way of eating, or get yourself consistent with that activity habit. Understand that it's okay to not just identify your goals as short-term and long-term, but then also identify each goal. Is this a heavy lift, or is this a lighter lift? Is this something that I know I should be doing and it's going to be easy for me to get it into motion? Or is this something that I know I should be doing that's going to take more work? And how do I feel about that? It helps you have some great understanding of what comes next in goal planning, which is action. How do you take your goals and turn them into action? Because, excuse me, I want to sneeze. We want to not just set goals and feel good about them, because there's a famous saying out there, and that's goals without action are just dreams. If you set goals for yourself and you're doing nothing to help you achieve those goals, you're just placing all your eggs in the hope basket and hoping that you achieve the goal. You want to actually start to derive actions around those goals, turning that into your daily action plan, your weekly action plan, and building that out for yourself. Now, one of the things that we come back to that is the S in SMART goals is specific. You want to be specific with your action plan. And this can, for some folk, it can feel weird because it's kind of odd for us to sit down and talk about things like mindfulness and mindset and even nutrition and exercise from a place of having a specific plan every day. And if that's not something you've ever done before, understand that it's okay that it feels weird, it feels awkward. But this is about building new habits, which uniquely next week we're going to talk a lot about. So that's why this class is going to progress. You want to be specific in what the actions that you need to take on a daily basis to help support your goals are. Write them out. Create that daily checklist for yourself. And a big part of using your, work on mindset around this is you build a daily action plan. When you review your why in the morning, you review that action plan. And at the end of the day, you then say, how did I do? What are the things that I did accomplish? What are the things that I might need to put some more focus on? What are the things that went completely wrong? And maybe I need to re-clarify. Because I think that's something else that we don't talk about a lot when we talk about goals is sometimes we set the wrong goals. Sometimes we lay out the wrong actions. We have to be willing to put things into action, assess them regularly, and determine if we're getting the results that we want from those actions and from those goals. So part of working on your mindset over the next 3 months is to start to get into these habits of daily reflections and mindfulness. Again, my recommendation in the morning, you're going to reflect on your why and your purpose. You're going to review your daily action plan for the day, and then you're going to assess that at the end of the day. One of the things that will then start to come up is that you start to realize that there are things for yourself that you have to be doing every day, no matter what happens, no matter what curveballs life throws you. Because that will happen, right? We planned a certain meal for dinner or something along those lines and forgot to take the meat out of the freezer, or we left it out on the counter all day and it went bad. Or we were planning to go to a specific restaurant with a group of friends. We knew the menu, we knew what we were planning, and then we find out that the menu changed or that restaurant's not open anymore. We were planning to exercise in the morning and something went wrong at home and didn't get to exercise in the morning. What are your daily non-negotiables? So again, this is a lot of work we're talking about tonight. That's why we start here, so that we can support you as you get into doing this work. You're going to be working on defining your purpose, defining what your short-term and long-term goals are and what the lift involved with those goals is. And then you're going to be working on what is my action plan that needs to follow? How are these actions supporting not only the goals, but are they reflective of my purpose? If my goal is to have, my purpose is I want to have greater access to things in my life. I want to feel like I'm a more active participant in life. I want to feel like I'm not saying no to things that I want to do. How are my goals and my actions reflecting that? Are they reflecting that? Or are they goals? Because sometimes, let's be honest, we get influenced by things we see other people say and do. We get influenced by things that my favorite example of this is when you see a lot of fitness influencers say 10,000 steps a day minimum for every human being, 10,000 steps a day. Now, if you pull up your walk app or you have a watch that tracks your steps and you're only currently walking 2,000 steps a day, immediately jumping to 10,000 steps a day may be more of a long-term, maybe something that should be more of a long-term goal. It's not something that you're immediately capable of. It's being okay with that. Your goals don't have to look like everyone else's goals is the point here. If your goal is to get to 10,000 steps a day because that's going to support benefiting your health, which is one of your bigger purposes, what does stepping towards that need to look like? What does your short-term goal need to look like? Specifically, if you're at 2,000 steps a day, making that 3,000 or 4,000 is a great place to start. Do that for a week and then see what you can continue to do to add and to grow in that space. The same thing with nutrition. If you are someone that is following a plan that has specific macros or you're trying to pay attention to specific macronutrients like your carb intake, your fat intake, and your protein intake, because those are the macronutrients, how are you fine-tuning that? If you're shooting for all or nothing on day one, you may find yourself stumbling. But if you build a goal to get that in line in a set period of time, you may find that you're more driven to actually do the work that it will take to get you there. So understand that goals drive action, and all of it comes through this lens of your purpose. I hope that that makes sense. I hope that as a part of your action plan, you start to look at this idea of non negotiables. And when I should go into that a little bit more. When I say non negotiables, those are the things that you're going to get done by the end of the day, no matter what. For some of us, that can mean if we are active every day, regardless of what time it happens. It may not be ideal, you're going to get it done. If it's following your food plan, even if you need to make adjustments because a meal went wrong or something you wanted wasn't available, you are committed to hitting that. Not all of your daily goals, your daily actions may end up being non-negotiables. There's some nuance there. There may be some things that you find that you need to put some more work into. The non-negotiables are the things that day one, this is what's important to me. This is what I have to complete every day. So at the end of the day, when my head hits the pillow, I can feel good about that day. And a big part of all of that in this mindset process is, like I said, that daily assessment of how things went. And focus that on what you did well first, then move into the things that need more work, the things that you need to change, the things that you need to add on. Because sometimes we forget that we are achieving things, even when it feels like we don't have everything in hand, everything, even though we feel like there's still some things we're building up to. So as you work through this process over these next 3 months, give yourself the grace to understand that going from 0 to 100 is probably not sustainable, but seeing yourself go from 0 to 100 over time is achievable. Set those short-term goals, work to achieve them, and define what comes next. So move yourself in a way that is methodical and mindful. That is something I'll probably say 100 times over the next 3 months, is I want you to work on building mindfulness, because I feel like that is probably the number one habit that anyone who wants to go on a sustainable weight loss journey and a sustainable health journey needs to have in place. And where does it all begin? It all starts with that idea of purpose and building upon that purpose. And that's why we talked about that this week. So that is the big overview of this first week, going through everything that we were planning to talk about in terms of the different pieces when it comes to setting goals. So like John said, there's going to be some homework involved with this class. And it's not going to be, I want a 5-page paper on your goals, in 12-point font, double spaced, submit that to us. But we are going to leave you with an assignment every week that we want you to complete in the group. And then we can all talk about it in the group. We can create threads supporting you in the things that you're doing and also giving feedback. That's why there's 2 of us here. So for this week's homework, sorry, I was going to sneeze again. We want you to share one goal you have for the next 30 days and one of your long-term goals. So in that weekly homework thread, share a goal you have for the next 30 days, a short-term goal. You can talk about the lift if you want to. I wrote a note here that says extra credit if you talk about the lift involved. And then you also talk about the actions you're going to put into place to help you achieve those goals. And this is important. This is why we're here to support you. If you have a clear vision of what you want those goals to be, and you don't know what actions you need to put into place, let's talk about that. That's why we're here. Use the group chat, use WhatsApp to message with us, to talk in the different areas, to help you define what your actions should look like. So if you're sitting there after watching this video, because I know there are going to be several people watching this replay, and you're saying, okay, I feel like I have a good hand on my purpose and a good hand on my goals, but I'm not sure what direction I need to take to achieve that goal. Let's talk about action. Let's talk about how we can help you turn those goals from dreams into things that you actually achieve. So again, summarize the homework: 1 short-term goal, 1 long-term goal, and then we'll talk about from there where you go with it.
Now we're going to cut to the Q&A portion, which is recorded for the group. But if you're watching this first session on YouTube or Instagram, you're going to have to join to see it. So come on board, check it out. We'll see you in the next one.